A man named Gucci built products that sold that identity. But ambition has a cost. Growth demanded capital he didn't have. The empire that Gucci built from nothing began to suffocate under its own success. Gucci had made a fatal mistake. It tried to become accessible. This is the financial story of how short-term growth nearly destroyed one of the most valuable luxury brands in modern history, and how the moment they stopped trying to sell to everyone was the moment they became worth everything. Gucci is worth over $20 billion today. Under Kering, it stands as one of the most powerful luxury houses in the world, a global symbol of wealth, prestige, power. But there was a moment when that empire nearly collapsed. Not because of a recession, not because of a scandal, not because demand disappeared, but because of a handbag. One product decision flooded the market, diluted exclusivity, and erased over $100 million in value almost overnight. Investors panicked, the board fractured, and members of the founding family dragged each other into open court. If you want real business stories told like cinematic documentaries, subscribe to Money Blueprint, because behind every fortune, there is a blueprint. Let's begin. Long before the global empire, there was a single room in Florence. The year was 1921. A man named Gucci, a former hotel porter who had spent years observing the world's wealthiest travelers, opened a modest leather shop on Via della Vigna Nuova. No inheritance, no financial backing, no family connections to power. What he had was an obsession. He studied the luggage of aristocrats, the materials, the stitching, the subtle cues that signaled wealth before a word was spoken. He understood what most entrepreneurs never grasp. Luxury is not about utility. Luxury is about identity. Expansion carried risks he could barely afford. Debt mounted quietly in the background while the brand's reputation grew louder. Cash flow tightened. Suppliers pressed. The shop that was meant to become an empire almost collapsed before the world ever knew its name. Then came expansion. Through the 1950s and 60s, Gucci moved beyond Florence. New York, Paris, London, Tokyo. Flagship stores opened in the world's wealth capitals, where status was currency and reputation traveled faster than advertising. Then came the celebrities: Grace Kelly, Audrey Hepburn, Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis. When the most photographed women in the world were seen carrying a Gucci bag, the brand didn't need marketing. It needed inventory. Prestige created pricing power. Pricing power created margins. Margins financed expansion. By the 1970s, revenue had surged into the hundreds of millions. The Gucci name had become something rare in business, a luxury brand that commanded desire, without ever discounting it. But while the storefronts multiplied across continents, something else was multiplying inside the company. Heirs, shares, egos, divided ownership, competing visions, quiet resentment. And when control is split between people who no longer trust each other, conflict isn't a possibility. It's a timetable. The family needed revenue, and they found a solution that felt like genius until it wasn't. They licensed the Gucci name, not selectively, not carefully, aggressively. Through the 1970s and into the 1980s, the Double G logo began appearing on over 14,000 different products. Watches, keychains, lighters, perfume, playing cards. Items selling for $20 in airport gift shops, carrying the same logo as a $1,200 leather bag in a Fifth Avenue flagship. Short-term revenue climbed. The balance sheet looked healthy, but something invisible was being destroyed. Luxury is not a product category. Luxury is a psychological contract between a brand and its customer. And that contract has one unbreakable clause. Not everyone can have it. Gucci broke that clause. Quietly, profitably, disastrously. Exclusivity didn't vanish overnight. It bled out, slowly, until the customers who once paid top dollar for prestige stopped seeing the prestige as worth paying for. Now here's where the real twist begins. Quick pause here. If you enjoy true financial case studies and money growth stories told like documentaries, comment money. And subscribe now, because Money Blueprint uploads storytelling finance episodes every day. By the early 1990s, Gucci was generating revenue, but it was generating it the wrong way. Then two men were handed the keys to the empire. Domenico De Sole, a lawyer with a sharp mind and firm resolve. Tom Ford, a relatively unknown designer with vision and audacity. What they inherited was a brand selling $20 keychains in airport gift shops. What they intended to build was something else entirely. Their plan was not subtle. They terminated licensing agreements. Systematically, they pulled products from mass-market retailers. Deliberately, they dismantled the distribution network that had made Gucci ubiquitous, and in doing so, made it scarce again. Revenue dropped by over $100 million. Not because customers stopped wanting Gucci, but because Gucci stopped letting just anyone have it. Investors panicked. Analysts called the strategy reckless. On paper, it looked like a company in freefall. But De Sole and Ford understood something the market hadn't priced in. You cannot charge a premium for something ordinary. And before Gucci could become extraordinary again, it had to be willing to bleed. The market called it a mistake. De Sole and Ford called it the plan. Because what analysts missed, what the balance sheet could not yet show, was happening inside the customer's mind. When Gucci disappeared from airport gift shops, people noticed the absence. When the Double G stopped appearing on $20 lighters, it began to mean something again. Scarcity is not just an inventory strategy. It is a psychological signal. It tells the market, this is rare, this is earned, this is not for everyone. And the market responded exactly as De Sole and Ford predicted. Desire returned, then demand, then pricing power. By the mid-1990s, Gucci's revenue had not just recovered, it had accelerated. Tom Ford's debut collection became one of the most talked about fashion moments of the decade. Raw, provocative, unmistakably expensive. The brand that had been bleeding out in airport terminals was now back in the hands of the world's most photographed figures. The $100 million loss had purchased something no marketing budget could buy: legitimacy. And with legitimacy came everything else. The brand was recovering, but the family was not. For decades, the Gucci heirs had been locked in legal warfare, sons against uncles, cousins against brothers, each faction fighting for control of a name worth more than any of them individually. Shares were sold under pressure, stakes diluted through litigation. Outside investors circled like vultures. Then came the moment that turned a business story into something darker. In 1995, Maurizio Gucci, the last family member with meaningful control, was shot and killed on the steps of his Milan office. The investigation did not point to a rival, not a competitor. It pointed to his ex-wife, Patrizia Reggiani, who allegedly ordered the assassination for $300,000. He was gone, and with him, the final direct link between the Gucci family and the empire that bore their name. By 1993, the family had already sold their last stake to Investcorp. The brand survived, the legacy survived, but the name on the door no longer belonged to anyone named Gucci. Here is what the Gucci story really teaches. Not just about fashion, not just about family, but about the fundamental economics of value. Growth without discipline doesn't build empires. It hollows them out. Revenue without positioning doesn't create pricing power. It destroys it. Expansion without governance doesn't scale a business. It fractures it. Gucci lost over $100 million deliberately. They fired customers, cleared shelves, walked away from revenue streams most companies would fight to protect. And in doing so, they purchased something that cannot be manufactured, marketed, or acquired. Perception. Because in luxury and in business, perception is the product. The lesson is not that scarcity always wins. The lesson is that knowing what you are and refusing to become anything less is the most expensive and most valuable decision a company can make. Gucci made that decision. It cost them $100 million. It returned them $20 billion. That is the blueprint. If this story gave you insight, inspiration, or perspective, if you want more true money stories, more business rise and fall case studies, more financial blueprints, and more financial lessons hidden inside real companies, like the video, share it with someone building something. Comment what company you want next, and subscribe to Money Blueprint. Because behind every fortune, there is a blueprint.